Welcome back to the channel, guys. So in this video, we're going to get into a little bit of what we touched on in previous videos in regards to, we mentioned personal growth, social growth, and money management. I just want to touch a little bit on personal growth. We're not going to go into it deep right now because for later video, we're going to go into it very heavy and really get to the meat and potatoes of it all. But for right now, just want to tack on the fact that personal growth, a lot of times, we find ourselves in our everyday situation feeling a little bit stagnant sometimes because we go from a phase that's going to apply to men and women. We go from a phase where it's, we're young. We go from obviously from our teens. Our teens in high school is like almost like the core of where we develop ourselves or who we are as people. And then after the fact, we get to college, if you go to college, or at least that phase in your life between like, say, 18 to like 20, 23. And we don't really change too much our core self that we developed from high school. So when we pursue forward, we find ourselves changing very little from that time. We have a lot of new interactions with people, but we don't really do a lot of changing. And so at that point, we kind of get grounded. It more cements the ways that we had from our core that we established from high school. So what ends up happening is that sometimes we get trapped in the college phase or around the age range. I should stop saying college phase because some people don't actually go to college. They might go to military, whatever the case is. So we'll just say that early 20s phase. You get trapped in a sense of, you start wearing a certain type of clothes. It's not usually, very mature adult level, but sometimes it's something in between, or maybe a little more advanced than when you were a young kid. But sometimes you start establishing these kind of trends where you're, maybe wearing certain clothes that caters to a certain trend or a group that you hang around, and it feels comfortable at the time. But then what happens, we get a little stuck because right after around 23, 24, it's time to go into that grown-up world. And sometimes, everyone totes around this saying that, well, 30 is the new 20. So what does that mean? 20 is the new 10. A lot of people start to hold on to old ways where they seem to find themselves trapped in like a more juvenile kind of status. They don't mean to, but as you get to 25, 26, maybe when you were a young kid, you'd look at someone who was 25, 26 as, oh, that's a grown adult when you were like 13 years old. Now that becomes you, and you're like, I don't feel as grown as my predecessors before me, my elders, when they were in that role. You don't even feel as responsible either in terms of maybe handling as much as it looked like they held on their shoulders when you would see those adults around you. So what ends up happening is you kind of get locked into this kind of situation where you're like, okay, I'm wearing these clothes. And, I myself got into a situation like that where I used to wear like clothes that was maybe a little more loose fitting than what, was fine for a young age, but wasn't good for the more adult stage of growth. And the reason why you want to get to a more adult appearance and style and the way you carry yourself is because essentially that's how the world's going to perceive you. And it's going to bring forth a certain level of confidence that goes with it if you feel the part that you look. But if you exude your exterior to exude that more juvenile presence that you've already been showing from the way you dress, you get from being in your young 20s, and now all of a sudden you're in your mid 20s, upper 20s, and you're still kind of wearing the same kind of clothes. Maybe you're a grunge type and you got the baggy bell bottoms, you got the ripped jeans, or maybe you're a goth type and you got all the black on. Maybe you're, this kind of jock type, or, like sports player type, and you're wearing sports gear jerseys all the time, even when it's not the appropriate time. You got your basketball shorts or your, sports kind of gear while you're going to like an event with family. It just shows that even if you're like 25, 26, 27 years old, you look juvenile. You look at a place, you don't look at your age range, and you get treated as so. So then when you go to a place, you go to an establishment, you go wherever, people look at you and they treat you as so. So part of the personal growth that we're going to get into, I know I started rambling a little bit, but part of the personal growth we're going to get into later on is diving into how you make those changes, the best way to make those changes, a more comfortable way to make those changes, because sometimes those transitions are pretty hard because we get a little uncomfortable with change. We all do. Giving advice on the best way to make those changes, along with understanding the importance of it, because you don't want to get to a point where you're 30 years old and people don't take you seriously. And depending on the way you carry yourself, the way you dress, the way you internalize change in your life, going to the next stage, because we have stages in our life. Once you internalize that next stage and understand where that line is for the next stage, along with how you get there, how do you get to the next stage, where the line is, how do you get to it, how do you properly exude it, then you will then feel one with that next stage, with that next phase of your life. You'll start to circulate. You'll start to put different people in your circles in terms of who you hang around, the type of company that you keep, X, Y, and Z. So this is very important. We're going to dive deeper into this later on. So just touching on that point a little bit, and later on we're going to touch on a few of the other points that I mentioned later on, social growth and money management, which also kind of go all hand in hand into this one segment of bettering yourself. But for right now, we're going to end the video there, and I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.